Thank you. Okay, so now we are recording. Okay, so we're going to go on over to the next slide. And it's not okay. All right, for the AP abdomen, proper breathing instructions. You really want to think about the same process of what we were talking about when we were discussing the respiration for the chest x-ray. We know that there's that huge muscular organ called the diaphragm that's going to be moving up and down as you take in your deep breath or as you exhale it. So what do you think you need to be doing for the chest x-ray? We wanted that diaphragm to be pushed down with a very deep double inspiration. So for the abdomen, we would want that diaphragm to actually raise up, and that allows the organs of the abdomen to kind of loosen up and I don't want to say unball, but that's really what it does, because your intestines and all that are just in a big ball. So it kind of spreads all that out for us. So for the majority of the exams that deal with the abdomen or the KUB, it's normally done on expiration because we're trying to get the diaphragm to pull itself up. And keep in mind that the diaphragm actually, there's that little picture that we talked about, how many ribs were actually being demonstrated in the chest on the expiration versus the inspiration. So that diaphragm does move, and it's the highest level is when the patient is supine. So you're going to actually be able to get that diaphragm pulled up a lot more when the patient's supine, and you're asking them to exhale all the air because the diaphragm comes up. When you're doing your erect, you have to keep in mind that the diaphragm, by gravity itself, is going to fall. And so, again, that's going to be the reason that a lot of times we can't get the diaphragm on either the flat or the erect. And I say the diaphragm down to the pubic symphysis, so we have to go in there and shoot from the pubic symphysis up, and then we'll have to get what we call a diaphragm shot. Any questions on that? Okay, so here's just some, let's see this.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the abdomen, we want them supine, but for the chest, am I right? The chest, we want them erect.
Always. Always. Now, there's going to be a difference between an upright abdomen. We do abdomens upright also, and we do abdomens for flat. So there's two different abdomens, and one of them is called a KUB. And I talked about this on the video. This is one area that students always get confused in it, but I want to tell you that on an order for the actual exam, it comes out and it says ABD/KUB. So it's basically the same exam, but we have to make a determination what's important, and we get that from the history of the patient, whether they're there for an abdomen, the ABD, or the KUB. But they ordered it as if it were the same thing, but we have to determine if we're more interested in the intestinal tract, the stomach, or we're more interested in the bladder and the kidneys, ureters, and bladder. So that's going to be given to us by the indication of the history. So yes, and to your answer for your question, we always do our chest x-rays upright, and that upright simply means the chest is vertical. Doesn't necessarily mean that your patient is standing up. They can be sitting in a chair. Many times you'll go up in their hospital room and they're sitting in a recliner. You can do it right there, and that's upright. Or you sit the bed up vertically, that's upright. So as long as the chest is actually vertical, upright, that's what you're going to do for a chest x-ray. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks. That helps a lot.
Okay, great. All right. So here again, we're looking at a flat, and this I would call abdomen KUB, depending on what you're imaging. And I'm going to tell you this, and I don't want to confuse you, but all of our facilities in Alexandria, and I'm pretty sure they're the same in Shreveport, they want the bottom of the bladder, which is the pubic symphysis, and they also want the diaphragm on both the flat and the upright. It's almost impossible to get both the bottom of the bladder down here and the very top of the bottom of the lungs, or the costophrenic angles in the diaphragm up here. So normally we end up doing 2. And the more important when you're doing the upright abdomen, it's going to be this part up here, because what we're looking for when we have the patient standing upright, say you did this right here and you notice it's not quite as low as the KUB. But for our facilities, for this upright here, which you would think they wouldn't be worried about the bladder because you have it over here on the supine, they still want to see it on this upright abdomen. So you're going to have to get this it turns out to be an upright KUB because we're getting the bottom of the bladder. Then we'll have to go back in and do another one, put an image up here, and we get what we call a diaphragm shot to include with that upright abdomen. And the reason they're interested in the upright is, first of all, you're looking at all your organs actually move when you're going from supine to the erect. Everything kind of falls. And also, we're looking underneath the diaphragm here in the upright. So if you did this upright to include the bladder, but you clip the costophrenic angles in the diaphragm, you can't see if there's any free air which is gravitated up underneath the diaphragm. So we'll have to go in there and do what we call a crosswise diaphragm shot. And that's just to demonstrate any free air that has gravitated up. Does that help out? And I will tell you, for your KUBs, this here, the AP projection is better. And the reason being is, where are your kidneys located? They're located where? I told you this in the
Posterior.
Posteriorly. That's right. They're also called retroperitoneum. They're not enclosed in the perineum sac of the abdominal cavity. So they're actually in the back, although they have a lot of fat tissue, adipose tissue around them for protection. They're still very vulnerable. If someone kicks you in the back, that's very dangerous because you can rupture a kidney very easily. But getting back to why we do the AP projection, you're right, the kidneys are in the back. So you're going to have better detail of the kidneys if you do the AP for the KUB upright. Okay, and here, the same idea here. This is an upright, and you can say this is the preferred. I have a problem with this one here because most patients aren't skinny like this model guy here. They have a big protruding gut. So the problem with that is that they have a tendency to have space in the upper thorax and the upper abdomen, and then you have your gut down here, and it pushes you away from the IR. So you're going to have, what's that going to cause on the image? So if you have greater or less OID here, but because of the gut, you've got more. So what is that going to cause? You know this in physics. It's going to
Magnification.
It's not necessarily magnification, but the other one, distortion, because this part will be closer to the IR. I'm sorry, farther than the IR because of the gut right here. Does that make sense? So the majority of our technologists that you'll be working with, they do all of these AP, and rarely will you see this PA. So just keep that in mind. These two are the ones that you're after right here. These are the ones that you'll be doing. These will be part of your, this will be considered a abdomen AP flat for a comp. And then this here, you'll do this one, and that becomes an abdominal series 3 view. Well, where's the third view at? You've got the flat, you've got the upright, but what's the third one that you need to include?
Oh, that's possible. Because it's touching germs.
What could have possibly gotten clipped right here on this upright? I just said it.
The costophrenic angle?
That's right. And the costophrenic angles right below that is the huge what? Dome. So
Diaphragm.
That's right. So we have to include the diaphragm. So for an abdominal series, you'd get a flat, you'd get an upright, and then some facilities want you to get a chest x-ray. Obviously, that's going to include the diaphragm, or we get what we call a diaphragm shot, and that's going to be a abdominal series. So it's going to be a flat, an upright, and a diaphragm shot, which is an additional view. I have I have an image of it at the end of this PowerPoint. Does anyone have any questions about this? I know it's a little confusing, abdomen / KUB. Technically, they're the same thing. The one thing I will tell you for the AP abdomen, you can actually center just slightly higher from the iliac crest, which is at L4. If the facility is the type of facility that says we want an abdomen, we're not interested in the bladder, you can go an inch above the iliac crest to include the diaphragm. Okay? Now, if you're doing this as a KUB, you stay at L4, which is at the, you see this little indentation right here on the back? You have a rib cage right there, and then you have the iliac crest. If you place your hand right there where that vertical line is, if you push into it, it caves in. That's called the soft spot. That you put your hand there and press in, and you find the curve of the pelvis, and that's L4. So that's where you would be centering at. It's going to be L4, and obviously you're staying at the MSP plane. Does anyone have any questions on this slide? Everybody good?
So, AP would be for KUB and PA would be for abdomen? Or is that not necessarily true?
True, yes, lady, true. This would give you better detail of the what?
The kidneys,
The kidneys. This would give you better detail of what?
GI tract.
Right. And if you notice in your chapter 1, when they talk about patient obesity, again, when you have this huge problem with the gut up here or down here, how are you going to get this area of the gut and this part of the diaphragm all in contact without the patient actually leaning into the IR? You see the problem with that?
Yes, sir.
So normally you're going to see this and this done, but you're thinking right. This is the preferred for the abdomen because the abdominal is in the abdomen is in the anterior. This is the preferred for the KUB because the kidneys are in the posterior. So you're exactly right. But I'm going to warn you, when you get into clinic, you're going to see this and this all day long. You're never going to see this. Okay? But
just to clarify, sorry, for the people that do have the gut, I don't remember if in your video you said to do it PA.
If they have the gut, you do it AP.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
AP.
Yeah. But again, you're going to find 95% of the time, you're going to be doing this and this for your abdomens and your KUBs. This is going to be considered your abdomen upright. This is going to be considered your abdomen and your KUB, depending on where you're centering and what you've included. But again, most facilities want both. So they want the both. They want the abdomen and the KUB at the same time, simply meaning the bottom of the bladder for the KUB and the abdomen. The abdomen requires the diaphragm. So it's just impossible. The only trick to this is if you increase your distance from 40 to 48 or even higher, you may minimize this to the point where you can actually include the pubic symphysis and the diaphragm. That's the trick of the trade. We'll teach you all that this summer and in clinic when we're working with you.
So the reason you have that picture on the bottom, it's not part of the series. You were just using that as an example of why it's not done like that because
it's in the book. These come straight from the book. That's on page 139.
I know that, but I was saying that you're saying that having the PA view is not part of it's not part of the way it's done because of the gut.
True.
Okay,
who is this?
Mesa.
Hey, Mesa, you're exactly right. You have to remember what we're teaching you right now is book knowledge. And then when you get into clinic this summer, you're going to have to let that book knowledge go and start doing as technologists do. So like I said, rarely will you see this PA, but again, it says when the kidneys are not, and I'm on page 139 to answer your question and help out. On 139 at the very top, it says when the kidneys are not of primary interest, the upright PA projection should be considered. It doesn't say required. Now, if you got a skinny person like this, that's not going to have, the protruding issue in the front with their gut, definitely you can do it this way, and you're actually going to get better detail because, again, the abdomen is in the front. Does that help out?
Yes, that would be lower OID.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay.
For the area of interest, which here, this is obviously a PV abdomen for the abdomen.
Okay, so depending on what you're looking for, gotcha.
Exactly. And again,
Okay.
you're just going to see this done over and over and over again, just to include the additional diaphragm view, which is where you just center at the lower curve of the ribs. So obviously that's going to give you the apex, not the apex, sorry, the costophrenic angles and the diaphragm. So we go right there to the inferior angle of the rib cage, and we put our horizontal line there. So in other words, we just center way up to ensure that we're getting half of the lung field on the additional view that's required. I know this is confusing, and I apologize, but this is the reality of radiology. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. I have one. I'm pretty sure you guys saved this, but I just wanted to see if I was correct. The series would be the patient lying down supine for the abdomen and KUB, and then patient standing up just for the abdomen, and then a chest for the diaphragm.
Yes, ma'am. It's going to be a full chest Chicavius, or it's what we call a diaphragm shot. It's just an additional view, just to where you get just the diaphragm and the costophrenic angles as an additional view, because on the upright abdomen KUB they still want the pubic symphysis, so you'll have to center up high on an additional. So it's called an abdomen series. It's a flat, an upright, and then something else to include either a full PHS or a cone down of the diaphragm. So that's exactly right.
Thank you so much.
Is that help out? Okay, everybody okay with this? Everybody okay with this slide? All right. So here we got two examples of evaluation criteria. So looking at these two, this is going to be your supine. We've got the pubic symphysis, right? It's called the upper margin of the pubic symphysis. And I told you, if you're uncomfortable palpating for that landmark, which I have no problem with it, I asked the patient to feel down below the bladder, and there's a hard bone. That's where they'll keep their hand, and then I place my hand even a little bit lower than that so that I can keep the landmark. Or it corresponds with the greater trochanter of the femur. If you look up and you get a skinny patient that you can actually palpate on the thigh to find that, then good, go with it. But I'm so used, and I was taught in school to medically palpate for the pubic symphysis. So the one thing when you're doing an abdomen or a KUB, you do not want to clip this. There's no reason, because the pubic symphysis is actually very prominent superiorly. Even when you lay down, guys, if you feel in yourself, you feel a hard little bone. So there's no reason to put a little bit of light below that bone, and what we call center at the, put the bottom of the light at the pubic symphysis margin and shoot up. So whatever you can get, and here, look, we didn't get any of the diaphragm or the lungs. So we're going to have to get one when we do the upright. But this is going to be, obviously, you see the outline of the kidneys. There's the kidneys. And what are these lines right here represent? What are those?
The ureters?
No, not the ureters. They're called psoas muscles. There are big bands right there at that white line, and I have an image in the back of the PowerPoint I'll show you that's real pretty. But MSP, these are little teardrops. Those are your spinous processes. So that's when you're doing a patient PA at the vertical. If you ever do one, you can actually palpate for the chest x-ray. You can feel those in the upper thorax also. The little bony projections that project out posteriorly. These are the transverse processes of the vertebral body right there on each side. So this is really well centered. We're basically at the top of the iliac crest, which corresponds, this is L5. So it really corresponds with L4. So that's where we're going to put our horizontal line. And again, you're at MSP. We've got a good placement of our marker. Over here, what's the very obvious thing? We got the little black arrows pointing at it. Why are those arrows there? What are you noticing? This isn't upright. Keep that in mind. What's going to gravitate up? What's moving up?
Air?
Air. Very
Diaphragm?
Very good. Now look, here's your diaphragm. You see right here? So that's what that.
Oh, okay.
This is off center. This is off center. So they centered high. So look, you see where the iliac crest is low. They're actually centering right about what? L3. So they went about 2 inches up from the iliac crest to include the diaphragms. So if they got any free air, it would gravitate up here. I wonder if I can move this box. Yeah, I don't know if I can't see everybody. Okay, so these are very, very distinct. You see these horizontal lines, right? Everybody see that? See right there how this is like a straight line? That's not normal on a flat. You wouldn't see a distinct air. In other words, the air is up into all the intestines, the colon and things of the GI tract. So this is the indicator of how you know this is an upright abdomen. It was done upright because there's actually air levels in the digestive tract. The straight lines, that's not normal to have something straight and kind of bubble up, if you want to call it that. So all the gas in the intestinal tract is going up to the upper portion of the bowel. That's not normal. That's what happens when we do an upright. But this is what we're after. You see the costophrenic angles? So this is an upright. So we would call this an upright abdomen to include the diaphragm, because what's cut off down here that would make it not a KUB?
The pubic symphysis?
The pubic symphysis or the bladder, right? You can see the margin of it, but we don't have the pubic symphysis. We don't have the bladder, KUB. So it has the kidneys. It has the ureters, which obviously you can't see them through all the bowel gas, but we don't have the B, so this can't be a KUB. So this is an upright abdomen to include the diaphragm. Now, some hospitals will accept this as an upright abdomen. Our clinical sites require you to do this upright, and then you do the additional picture kind of cutting right there and to include that diaphragm shot. So in other words, they want the pubic symphysis even on the upright. So that's where it's a little tricky. But anyway, does anybody have any questions on these two? Notice this, I don't have a marker.
I do have a question. So besides not having a marker, that's still a bad image because it's not clear.
Which
and
one?
It's not
this one?
the one. No, that one's good. The other one.
No, this is
the one
fine.
with the arrows.
This is fine.
Oh, it's fine. Okay.
Why would you think it's not a good image?
I just can't see like the bladder, the outline of the bladder.
Well, you can't see the outline of the bladder down here because basically it's cut off.
I mean, not the bladder, the kidneys. I meant the kidneys.
Okay. Let me tell you about the kidneys. You can see up here really well. Not on air. What's right here? What's right there?
Is that the liver?
That is the liver. Look how light gray it is. It's tissue. It's not black. It's attenuated, so it's a light gray. That's the largest organ inside the body right there. So the kidney is snubbed right in here. So not on every image of the abdomen or KUB will you actually see the kidney unless we inject it with contrast. Okay, so this would be a preliminary picture, and if you can't see it, I can tell you the kidney's right there. Can you see those two tiny little white spots? Two right there. See them? Right above the bottom, the top of the circle I'm pointing at. Right there is tiny little white dots. Those are called calcium specks, and those are inside of the kidney. And of course, you'll learn that with experience. But that was the first thing my eye caught was those two little dots there. And you know which kidney is going to be lower. So if this is the margin of the kidney right here, where's the left one going to be? The left is actually located higher than the right. But don't critique them because you can't see the outline of the kidney. Because like Dr. Haynes was talking earlier this morning, you can actually window level this image and bring these kidneys in on this side at least, because these have bowel loops over. You can't see it. Remember, the kidneys are in the posterior back, right? So you got all this superimposing it. You have any questions on that one?
Yes, where is the diaphragm on the picture B?
Right there, baby. Right there. You see the two angles? There's your cardiac phrenic angle. There's your cardiophrenic angle. Your diaphragm is the whole big organ right here. Just a muscular. It's very thin, so you know it's not going to be real prominent. But you know, if you got the costophrenic angles, the diaphragm is actually pushed underneath the base of the lungs. Okay, so anytime you see your costophrenic angles, you know you have the diaphragm. Any other questions? Okay, I'm trying to get it to advance. There it goes. All right, so again, look how pretty you can see the outline of this kidney. You see that? This is a flat. You notice they put a down arrow meaning flat. Psoas muscles are right here. You see how thick and band they are on the this is an MRI, but you can see how wide those bands are. Can you see it right there? They're hard to see on some images, but I can see this one right here real good. Okay, so this here is a flat. We would call this a KUB because what's included, we got the upper margin of the pubic symphysis. It's centered at L4. A little crooked on the MSP, but not bad. I'm following the spinous processes up, and I can see there's a little angle there, but not. You see a little dead space over here, little framework. You see it's clipped over here, so that they could have been pulled to the right just a little bit, kind of centered up a little bit better. Any questions on this? Y'all can see where the bladder, that's the bladder right there. And obviously these are coronal pictures, so they've cut off the front part of the rest of the pelvic and the pubic symphysis. It's coming in right here. Okay, left lateral decubitus. So this is done when we can't get our patient to sit up erect for that diaphragm shot, or they can't stand to get the erect abdomen or the KUB. This takes the place of the upright. So the only thing that we're doing, and they call it a left lateral because this patient is lying on what side?
Side.
Side down is the left. It's a left lateral decubed because he's lying on the left side. It's decubed because this is called what type of beam?
Horizontal.
It's horizontal to the patient. That's exactly right. Good. So this is used in place of the upright abdomen, which would show free air. So if this patient had free air in the abdomen, where would it gravitate to? What side?
The right side.
The side up. That's right. Now, if they had fluid in their abdomen that has escaped, where would the fluid be?
On the left side.
Side down. Fluid's heavy. It's going to go down. Air's going to gravitate up. But we call our decube by the side down. Okay? And obviously in here, where all that fluid and all that's in your intestinal tract should be contained. But if you start seeing something level off and turning white down here, that means that they've got a perforation in their intestinal tract and that that's become septic and it can kill them. But normally we're looking for air. We're looking to see if they have any free air, so that air is going to gravitate up. Fluid's going to fall down. And this is a left lateral decube. Let's see if I got it in. Here's a picture of them. Okay, so again, look at the free air. You can see this black tiny line. See it? You know, air is black. That's not supposed to be there. See it right there? So that's what you're doing. And this is the right side up. So if this is a decube, what do we call it? This is going to be side down, which is the opposite of the side up. So this is a what? Left lateral decube. Left lateral decube, and that little marker is your indicator. Look which way it's pointing. It's pointing up, so that says the right side's up, so apparently the left side is down. Okay, and I can tell you right now, there's a little white spots right in there. Those are staples. These are staples down here. Those are all medical stuff. But this patient has had their a cholecystectomy, meaning that the gallbladder is being removed, and those are staples right there in the where the gallbladder would have been. And again, you can see this big, huge organ right there, and that is the lower lobe of the liver. So if you didn't have this right here showing, you could always go with this idea here that you know that something with some density is on this upper side, and it's taking up that whole quadrant. So that's going to have to be the liver, and that means that's the right side. And to notice that they haven't clipped anything down here. In other words, the margin, lower margin of the abdomen is still on the image. That's important. So they have some type of translucent pad or something to raise. It can be even on the mattress. As long as the patient is built up to where if there was any fluid down here, you would be able to see it and that you wouldn't have cut it off the image. You have any questions? Sacavius, there's your diaphragm again. Side up, see it? Surgical clips, again, I pointed those out. Intestinal air, obviously here's our crest, and that is definitely not centered, so they centered high because they were trying to include the what? They wasn't concerned about the bladder here. That's right, they wanted that diaphragm on there. So this is a left lateral decubed abdomen. All right. Lateral dorsal decubes, not done that often. Again, this is it takes the same place. It's called left lateral decube. Again, it's the side touching the IR. No problem with that. But the planes change. We're actually got our vertical line. What plane is that? What plane is this?
Coronal.
That's mid-coronal, exactly. And they're staying at the iliac crest. You can see where it kind of curves in on the side there. Lower curve of the ribs right in here, top of the crest. So they're staying at L4. So this is a dorsal decube. This will show basically the same thing. It's just not as, it's not as good of a picture because you're shooting through the thicker portion of the patient, which is the lateral aspect, whereas the lateral decube that we just looked at was actually an AP projection or a PA projection, so the patient was actually thinner, so you got a prettier image. Does that make sense? This here, you don't do that often simply because you're shooting through the thickest portion of the patient, which is through the sides, not going AP. Y'all understand that? You see how this patient is in an AP projection, right? And look, now we're shooting through his lateral side. So this is a lateral decube, and that we're actually entering the lateral side of the patient. And that's very thick to penetrate. So these images don't turn out as well as the AP or PA projection. All right, and here's a picture of it. It's going to show your gas, obviously, in your bowel is all gravitated up. You do have some gas levels. You see a few little distinct line, horizontal line right there, and that's kind of what they're pointing at. Those are all, here again, a pretty picture of your diaphragm. This looks like a lateral chest, right? This is the lower part right here, posterior ribs. And again, you see there's a supporting pad that has elevated this patient because we got some curve of the ribs that's all included. None of it's got clipped off, and that's important. That's that translucent pad that they're lying on right there. This is actually just dead space arch of his back. Iliac crest is superimposed. But we don't do these that often. But again, if you see this come out and you're noticing that it looks like a lateral chest up here for your evaluation criteria or your image critique test, look at that and go with what you know. You know this looks like the lower part of a lateral chest, so the patient had to be done in a lateral, so we're shooting to the lateral side. Any questions? Okay, this is something that's just thrown in there. I'm not quite sure if this is even in your book. I think it might have been in the anatomy section. If not, it's no big deal. This is something called a tomogram. Something you probably will never do because they're kind of obsolete now. But what we've done, we've actually created motion. You know how all of this looks blurry except the kidney. And that's what this is done for. These are called tomograms of the kidney. And you can see all the collecting ducts. This patient has been injected with dye, and the dye highlights the entire kidney. And as it concentrates and it gets filtered through all the nephrons, all these corpuscular areas, it collects and condenses, and it gets turned real white. And then you can start seeing this little white line. You can see it right there also. Those are your ureters coming down and draining the dye, which would normally be draining urine. And again, I just want to show you where your bladder is in relation to the pubic symphysis. So again, we want to make sure that we always get that upper margin of the pubic symphysis to get the. Now, if you're going to do a kidney shot, which is what this is called, just or I could even tell you a diaphragm shot. This is actually going to be your margin of your upper diaphragm up here. But look where the kidneys lie. So if you needed to make sure, or you thought you needed to get upper one to include the upper pole of the kidney, it's at the inferior curve of the ribs. We center right there horizontally to do a kidney shot. That's what we want to do. And then when we do a bladder shot, if we clip the pubic symphysis, instead of radiating a repeat for the whole KUB or abdomen, I might tell you, just go in there and get a bladder shot. Well, you find the pubic symphysis and you go up just about 2 inches, and that's dead center over the bladder. So again, this pubic symphysis is very, very important. But again, it corresponds to that greater trochanter on the outside. So that's very palpatable, but I can only find it on thinner patients, and I've gotten so used to doing this, it's not a problem at all. But it's going to be up to you and what you're comfortable with. But I always make sure that I tell my patient what I'm going to be palpating, or I ask them to palpate for me. And here's your urinary bladder. This is the bottom portion of that tomography. This is the ureters coming down and entering the bladder, filling the bladder up, which normally you would not see like this, but it's highlighted because now it has contrast mixed in. The ureters actually enter the base of the bladder. So as it trickles in, it fills up from the bottom up, which I thought also that was kind of neat. But here's your upper margin of your pubic symphysis again, bladder. Any openings, again, this is the floor of the bladder right here. You can see the openings of the ureters. They're at the base of the bladder, so the urine will actually fill up this way. All right. So these are some images Dr. Curtis sent me. Now I can't see everyone. Participants. Let's see if I can expand this screen. All right. All right. Let's see. Let me pick at somebody. Caitlin Hicks, how are you doing? Is she there? Caitlin? Caitlin, you doing okay? All right. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Let's do something here. What are these?
The psoas muscles.
Very good. Look how pretty they are.
Yes,
What is this right here? What is that right there? Here's the other one. They come in pairs.
Is that the kidney?
Huh? Jesse?
The kidneys?
Yeah, good job. Okay, what's this right here? Look at it right there. You see how you see the density change right here? So there's something that attenuated more, so it's lighter.
The liver?
That's right. That's right. Good job. Okay. What is that?
The heart?
No.
No.
What color is it?
The stomach.
It is the stomach. Air in the stomach. That's your buddy there. It's called the gastric bubble. Very good. All right. So Meeting criteria or not, it's very pretty, but unfortunately, what did they clip? Pubic symphysis. So
Pubic
this,
symphysis.
this is something that I will tell them. I will tell you guys, you should never clip the pubic symphysis. This is just a major no-no because there's a prominent bone right there that you have no reason not to be able to feel and put light below that. So you put your light bottom of your collimated field here and shoot up. So here now, we haven't included the diaphragm. You can see the corner of one coming right in there. But now we have to go and re-expose this patient because they require you to get this margin right here. So this, I mean, again, get all the pubic symphysis. And then if you need to get an additional view up here to get the diaphragm, you've done nothing wrong. But when you clip the pubic symphysis and you haven't demonstrated the diaphragm, this is basically a useless image right here because it doesn't meet any of the requirements. These are your flank muscles here too, right there and right there. Any questions on this? You see these little drops right here? Let's see, JT, what are these? You're on. What are those little dots right there called? Are you there?
The vertebra.
Huh?
The vertebra.
Yeah, well, the vertebra is the entire bone there. These are your spinous processes. Feel on your back right now. There's little knots all the way up your spine. That's them right there. So when you're MSP perfectly, those should be evenly. They should be under each other, which these really are. Okay, what are these right here? See those little wings coming off? Those are the transverse processes of the vertebra. These are the pedicles, if you don't know that yet, but those are the pedicles. All right, any questions on this one? Advance. There it goes. All right, where's let me pick at somebody. All right, Shacavius, you're on. What we got? What do you
What do
think,
we call it?
ma'am?
What do we call what?
What are we looking at?
It looks like it. KUB,
Okay, KUB, because we've got all of the what?
the bladder, I'm sorry, the bladder, and the pubic symphysis.
Yeah, let me show you. See this faint circle right there? That is actually your bladder. But you've got the top of the superior margin. You got more than you need actually. But you got the bottom of the bladder because you got the superior margin of the pubic symphysis. Okay, what do we think this is, Shacavius? That's that problem I was telling you a lot of people have in the front of them.
It was a gut.
Well, yeah.
That is the gut. That's a skin fold. Very good. What's this? Tricky.
I think it's a thumb.
It is a thumb. Very good. Very good. Yeah. So they need to take their hands out of the way, first of all, right?
Were they just probably palpating and just forgot to move their hand?
The tech's palpating?
Or maybe they told them to hold their hand.
No.
Or did the tech tell the patient to hold their fat out of the way? Oh, maybe.
Hold it up. No. They just got their hand laying on too close to their
They just wanted to look.
kind of like underneath probably underneath their gut on the side of their left side.
It
All
looks
right.
like they're
So
punching it.
we can see the colon up here. The kind of the light gray crosses the transverse colon, descending, ascending. Kind of see the psoas muscle margin running right through there. Kind of seeing it run right through there. Any marker, got a good marker. Any questions on this? Pretty good looking. Like I said, I wouldn't get as much of the pubic symphysis. You just need the upper margin on that one. Okay. And now my list is gone again. Participants. All right, let's see. Samantha, what do we got? Your mic's on.
Oh, me? Okay.
Samantha Wilbur, Miss Wilbur.
Yeah. What's the image?
I'm
It looks
sorry.
like an
What are we looking at?
abdomen.
Yeah. What's this thing here?
Upright.
Yeah, upright abdomen, and they've included the what?
The diaphragm.
The diaphragm, lots of the base of the lung. They've centered way high because here's your iliac crest way down here, so they've centered right at L2 to ensure that they got a lot of the upright part of the abdomen. Again, what you can see this big organ here that's taking up that whole quadrant. That's going to be your what? Your liver. Can y'all see the patient has slight scoliosis? Can you see the curvature right there? It's not unusual. A lot of people don't know they have it. Slight scoliosis. What's this right here, Samantha?
The kidney. Oh wait, the stomach.
It's our friend. I've told you it's always going to be there.
The stomach.
It's part of the stomach, but that's actually the stomach's all right here. But this is your gastric bubble that's in the upper portion of the stomach. It's in the fundus portion of the stomach, so it's higher than where your esophagus actually comes down and connects to it. So it's always trapped right there, and that's always found underneath the left diaphragm. That's your gastric bubble, and you can tell again. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask, isn't that an indication that it was done upright? Isn't that what you said?
That's right, because your gastric bubble is underneath the diaphragm. So if this little marker wasn't there, you also can see these horizontal lines in the colon. You see these right here? That's an indicator right there that the air has leveled off. It's gravitated up, and it's gotten into they call it the postras of the colon. It's got traps. But anytime you see a horizontal line like that, you know it's upright. But obviously it's upright because we've got lots of the diaphragm in the lower base of the lungs. Good job. I think I got 1, 2 more. Let's see. Just don't want to advance. All right. Let me get into this. Let's see what else we got in here. Mr. Connor, how are you doing?
Good.
All right, let's go. What we got?
Lord. Oh, it's kind of hard to see.
Is it? You can't see. Are you on the phone?
Yeah.
Oh, man. What's this?
Is that like the bra wire or something?
Yep. Those are underwires.
Yeah.
And you can see the bra straps right here. So that's a major no-no. So
Yeah, an artifact.
those are definitely artifacts. Okay. What else did we have? Obviously, we're including the what?
Diaphragm.
Yep. So this is going to be considered an what?
Ooh.
Is it a KUB or is it an abdomen?
KEB.
No. Is the B there?
Oh,
Where's
gotcha.
where's your bladder?
It's not in the picture.
Okay, so that makes it an upright abdomen to include the what? Diaphragm. So this is definitely an upright to include the diaphragm. Don't really see too many distinct. I don't really see any air fluid levels. Probably being that if you turn your patient up from the supine real quick and you shoot your next picture without giving the air time to gravitate up and level off, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get those distinct little horizontal lines that we were looking at. There's some medical staples there. But this is a problem. Anytime you're doing an abdomen or a chest, they always need to get completely undressed as far as the bra issue. And this is why, because obviously the bra and the breasts are going to be superimposing the area that we're interested in on this upright, which is your diaphragm and your lower base of the lungs. All right. Spinous processes, MSP looks pretty good. Little shifted on the marginal sides of the pelvis. You can see you have a little bit more here than right here. So they could have been pushed away a little bit to get a little bit more of the right iliac wing, but repeatable, I wouldn't think so. Other than obviously this definitely is a problem. But always make sure you dress your patient accordingly. All right, good job. All right, let's see. Can't do this like I want to do it. Every time I go to a slide, the participants move. All right. Miss Mangum, how are you? Ann, are you there? I got your mic turned on. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. My internet is lousy right now.
Oh, I can't pick at you.
You can try.
All right, let me just try real quick with you. What's the problem right here? Look, I can't say a problem. What are this? What's that? We talked about this.
And the breast be
That's
pulled
right.
upwards and laterally.
Yeah, you can see the breasts are up high, but this is the corner. Again, we're after this area right here. So they did a pretty
And it's
good job.
superimposing the A.
Right. What's the problem right here, though? Look, what did we clip?
The sides of the
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of the lines.
Angle, the costophrenic angle.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and that's very important. And you can see they had a little room, so if they'd have pulled the patient and got them over to the right a little bit, they probably would have got that very base of that left costophrenic angle. It's pretty in the fact that look how many distinct horizontal lines we have in the intestinal tract. So it definitely gives you that feeling that it's an upright abdomen. And a little off on the MSP, but not terrible. But you can see there's a difference in the pelvic wing, how flat this one is. This one's turned up just a little, so you can see they wasn't standing flat. You know, it says put their feet flat on the floor and get them to adjust their weight appropriately and equally. This is the problem right here. But other than that, it's a pretty image. But this is a problem right here because this really is what you're after is that upper diaphragm area, and they unfortunately clipped it. So they probably could have turned the IR the other way and made it 17 by 14 and got more of it this way instead of this. Or they may have come back behind us. Obviously, it's not a KUB because look at the bladders completely cut off. So this is the upright. This is the diaphragm shot. I normally turn my IR in the other dimension so that I don't take a chance of clipping either of the costophrenic angles. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Mr. Wedgeworth, how are you doing? You're on, Cameron.
Abdomen.
Okay, what do we got?
I'm assuming it's for the lower portion of the abdomen.
Okay, it
It
could
includes
be.
the
It's definitely including the lower
pubic symphysis.
the pubic symphysis. There's the bladder. Not quite sure that we got all of the kidney, but the problem with this, Cameron, do you see? Well, first of all, what's that?
It looks like another, the gut again.
Yeah, that's the gut again. That's another skin fold. So the problem with this patient is that they're larger than the IR. Can you see there's no margins? So we're literally clipping. We've clipped the wings. So on this particular situation, you may actually do what we call off-centering, and you would do a quadrant. You would do a right one and a left one so that you get all the soft tissue on both sides, because obviously this patient's not going to fit, or you could do two of them. You could do a lower crosswise, meaning turning this the other way, the dimensions, do an upper and a lower crosswise. I've actually had to do a patient that we did them in fours. We did 4 quadrants. That's how large of an abdomen. And you know, when there's supine laying down, it has a tendency to spread, so it gets even wider. Trying to get everything included on that. They're centering a little high, but it comes out okay. Like I said, this is important here that we do have the bottom of the pubic symphysis a little under penetrated. Again, it's a large patient. I can tell just because of again, there's no margin of framework on the IR itself. Skin fold said that. So for this one, Cameron, what would you do next if this was a supine and you've clipped this much of the top? What would you do in addition? You've got the bottom part, right?
So turn it crosswise and then do a top.
Very
Do
good.
the top part.
Exactly. So I would turn it crosswise and I would get one higher up here to include at least
The diaphragm.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, get that diaphragm on there. Good job. All right. Let's look at the next one. All right. Candy
They'll probably
Frost.
send you home early.
Candy Frost. How you doing?
Good.
What we got? Talk it out.
Abdomen.
Okay, you're going to call it an abdomen? What's included down here?
Well, it includes your bladder, so I wasn't sure if it was going to be a KUB or an abdomen. I'll question myself on that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Why won't you just say abdomen KUB? Because if you're going to do an abdomen, just like what Cameron just said, what would you need to do in conjunction with this image? What would you do in an additional picture if it was an abdomen? So you need to get one what?
You would have to go a little higher.
Yeah, a lot higher, right? Because we don't even see that's the inferior angle of the liver right there. So this person,
Right.
so this is, there's nothing wrong with this image because you did exactly what you were supposed to do. And you got the very upper margin of the pubic symphysis. There's the bladder. We shot up. We got what we could. So we would just have to go back and, like Cameron said, get an additional picture to include the upper part of the abdomen and the diaphragm. What are these lines right here? See those triangular?
Are the psoas muscles? Is that what you're pointing at?
You see? Can you see them? You see those light gray bands?
Yeah, I can see it. Your
Okay.
little mouse just kind of jumps a little bit on my screen.
Okay, yeah, I'm pointing at those right there. What's these little teardrops?
Spinous processes.
Very good. What's these little spots? Little.
Those are the wing things or
Very
the
good.
transverse processes.
Very good. I'm proud of you.
I was listening.
You were. Proud of you. All right. Again, like I said, I would just get an additional upper shot. You can see what's this, Candy. Look at that one. It's outlined real pretty. Bean shaped.
Name.
Yeah, what's that? You got two. You got two of them.
Is that the liver?
No,
I mean, the bean shape is the kidney, and
That's
then
right.
that behind it is the liver.
And your liver's on what side?
Your liver's on both sides.
No, baby. Your liver's on the right side.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But you can see the left kidney real pretty. And you know the left kidney, or is it higher or lower than the right? Is this kidney going to be higher or lower than the right one?
I don't know.
Okay, it's going to be higher because the liver is up here pushing down on the right. So if you know you got this pole, this upper pole of the left kidney, that you guarantee that you got the right one, although you can't see it over here because of the gastric pattern. But can you see that bean-shaped organ right there? Right there. It's kind of faint. So that's the left kidney. Very good. All right. Let's see if I got any more. All right. Let me get somebody here. Hey, Shelby,
Hey,
how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What we got here?
What do we have here? Let me see. Okay,
Just talk it out.
so another on their lateral side. One
Okay,
on their lateral side, I'm assuming.
what side?
Is it the right since the left is
Good,
up?
because we mark what?
The left
We
side
mark, we
up.
mark side up, but this is going to be
Mm-hmm.
called a right
Lateral
lateral
decubitus.
decubitus. Yes, decube. Very good. And this is this is looking for what? Free air. If it's got free air, where's the free air going to go?
To the top.
Okay, it's going to
Above.
gravitate very good up to the top. And
Mm-hmm.
what is this white line right here?
Is that like a sheet or something they were
That's
laying
right.
on?
Yes, that's whatever they use to build the patient up. You see how the margin of the rib cage is built up? So
Yes.
they didn't clip it off, so that's a pad or sheets or something. You're exactly right. Very good.
Okay.
And this is a right lateral decube, guys. The marker is indicating side up. We call it the side by the side down. When you're looking for at a decube, or you think you're looking at a decube, here again you see the horizontal line of the gastric bubble. See how it's kind of leveled off there? It's leveled off
Yeah.
there. There's a little bit of lining off here, but this is a good indicator of it right here. So again, what are these little teardrops?
Sinus processes.
Very good. And we got the little what's
Transverse process.
what is this?
Rib.
That is the rib. What rib is it?
Is that the false rib or
That
something like
is
that?
very good.
Look at that.
That is your. It's called floating rib. That is your 12th
Yes.
rib.
Yeah.
These are your 12th ribs, and they're called false or floating ribs. There's 12, 11, 10. All right, good job. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so we got one more here. Let's see if I can pick it out. Oh, there's my Whitney. How are you?
You know, I'm doing well.
You doing well? Good. What were you looking at?
A lateral.
Which lateral?
Left lateral.
Left what?
Lateral decubitus.
Very good. We got the side up marked. We got a distinct horizontal line right there. Here's your gastric bubble. There's your buddy. It's leveled off. It's got a flat bottom. A lot of flat bottoms going on in these air pockets. So we got and it's very pretty. We got a left lateral decube. There's your sheet. You see the white banding again. Something that they built the patient up on so that they didn't clip any of the just in case they had any what, Whitney. What would fall to the bottom?
What do you mean?
Why can't we clip the bottom down here if we're looking for free air? What if they have free fluid? Where's the fluid?
Oh, yeah.
The fluid's
Right.
going to go down.
The
So
gravity.
that's right. So that's why we want to make sure that we build them up to include the both sides, the bottom and the top. Very good. What's this right here? Come on.
The part of the ribs, I can't really tell.
Well, what organ is it?
Oh, the diaphragm.
What organ's right here? Big old massive organ.
Oh,
Come on, side
the
up.
liver.
Very good. The liver. Good job. All right. Thank you. All right, guys. That was all of the PowerPoint. So let me see if I can get this closed out. All right. Stop that. I want to go and I want to see if I can figure out how I can Stop application sharing, yes. So add a chest x-ray with the series. Okay, guess we answered that. Boobies. Black, okay. So what do y'all want to do now? I'm going to stop the recording. It was an hour long, so I'm going to